Hello, everyone, and welcome back to day number 6 of the Casting Colosseum. My name is Snake, and with me is Dynatropia and everyone's favorite Clampion, Alucard, as your Hex reporter. And we are going into our final day of the Casting Colosseum before we go into Sunday's Hextravaganza tournament. And I'm excited for the matchups that we have tonight. Our first matchup is going to be TheMotivation versus Nemelex. And let's take a look at our gladiator. TheMotivation hails from Niagara Falls, Canada. He is 31 years old. He pray he doesn't get flooded or shard screwed, which it appears to happen to him every once in a while, especially in major tournaments. He weaves baskets and does extreme ironing while scuba diving. He once won a draft, and it was really cool. If you haven't found Motivation on Twitch yet, you can find him at twitch.tv/TheMotivation. Let's take a look at the deck the Motivation is piloting today. It is Blood Diamond Banks, and the troops in this deck consist of 2 Charged Colossus, 4 Vampire King, 4 Vampire Princess, 2 Fenteo, the Brood Priest, a single Uranaz, and 4 Angel of Dawn. Making up the rest of his constants and actions has 3 Soul Marble, 4 Extinction, 4 Kill, 2 Repel, 2 Martyr, a single Pride's Fall, 2 Inquisition, a Pact of Pain, and rounding out his resource pool, he's playing 4 Shard of Retribution. His champion is Rutherford Banks with a starting health of 23, requires double diamond threshold and 7 charges. Put target troop from your crypt into play.
Blood Diamond Banks, or as I like to call it, the Blood Banks, is a very strong deck. I can give it the Dino seal of approval. In fact, I lost to one in the finals of the VIP tournament this morning. So this deck is strong. Let's break down what it uses to destroy its competition. By and large, we're going to look at medium level threats, things like Vampire King, Vampire Princess, and Fenteo. Put a couple of these medium threats on the board and then back that up with removal. So things like a kill, a repel, an extinction if something gets out of hand. But it's 1 or 2 major threats which comes down and then using that to carry the game. Rutherford Banks also has a really neat combo. This was originally done by Sadalucian in the 12th IQ, but since then we've seen a bunch of people using this particular trick. Charged Colossus is an 8/8. When this enters play, you gain 8 charges. You might notice Rutherford Banks' ability for 7 charges, you get to put target troop from your crypt into play. This can create an infinite cycle where if somebody removes the Charged Colossus, you just get to bring it right back, and that just continues over and over and over again until your opponent falls down dead.
Let's take a look at the Motivation's competition tonight. It's going to be Nemelex, who hails from Monument, Colorado. He enjoys playing mid-range control. Interesting facts about Nemelex. He has a webcomic that he updates daily, and you can find it at the web address on the screen. He draws art for the forums, and his favorite race is the Necrotic. Let's take a look at the deck that Nemelex is piloting tonight, and that is Boat Murdered. And troops consist of 4 Tectonic Mega Hulk, 3 Reese the Crust Crawler, 2 Urek the Robomancer, 3 Boomsmith, 2 Tireless Researcher, 4 Ingenious Engineer, 3 Bombsmith, 3 Fissuresmith, and 3 Chargebot. Actions and artifacts rounding out the rest of this deck are 3 Crackling Bolt, 3 Burn, and 4 Construction Plans Tower Hulk. Rounding out his resource pool, he's playing 4 Shard of Innovation and 3 Crackling Vortex. His champion is Bertram Craigraven with 19 starting health, a single Sapphire Threshold, and 3 charges. Create a worker bot and put it into play.
So Boat Murdered is a tribal deck in the most pure sense of the word. This is about dwarves and the things that love dwarves, aka robots. This deck focuses on putting out as many of these guys as possible and then using them to crank up some of the major threats. Major threats include Tectonic Mega Hulk, which gets fewer tunneling counters, depending on how many dwarves and or robots you control, or perhaps the Construction Plan Tower Hulk. If he doesn't want to go under, he can go up. The more dwarves and or robots you have, you can exhaust them to put counters on that Tower Hulk, and that guy will become a XX for however many counters you have. So those are the 2 main win cons that Nemelex is going to want to get out and use to carry him to victory.
All right, so let's head on down to the tournament floor for our first match of the night. This is going to be the Motivation versus Nemelex, and we can see if Motivation can continue his string of victories in the casting Colosseum. What do you like? Who do you like in this matchup? I know that Motivation is playing a very strong deck, but what does Nemelex need really early to take control of this matchup and try to win?
I think he's got to keep these mid-level threats, the three drops that are so devastating, particularly the Vampire Princess and Fenteo. If he can do that, if he can keep those guys off the board, I think one or two swings with a major threat, whether that's Reese or Tower Hulk, could carry the game for him.
All right, let's take a look at opening hands for both players. The Motivation with Double Blood Shard, Vampire Princess, Vampire King, Uranaz, a Charge Colossus, and Extinction. On the other side, 4 Nemelex sitting at a Ruby Shard, Sapphire Shard, 2 Shards of Innovation, Crackling Bolt, a Reese the Crustcrawler, and a Charge Bot.
It's a lot of expensive things on the Motivation side and no diamond.
Motivation will start his turn by playing a Blood Shard. He'll pass the turn over to Bertram, aka Nemelex.
On the other side, though, I do like Nemelex's hand, and early Reese is never anything to complain about.
Nemelex is going to go ahead and play a Sapphire. We'll put out the Charge Bot onto the field, and that will shift focus back over to Motivation.
So what Nemelex is going to want to do is build up his board as wide as possible and try and get one of his major threats out before the Motivation has enough resources for a board wipe like Extinction.
Inquisition is the draw, plays a Blood Shard, so we have a turn 2 Inquisition, and what a great top deck for Motivation.
Oh, it must feel so great to just rip that off the top of the deck like that. Nemelex, on the flip side, though, probably not too thrilled. The best part about his hand, that Reese is likely not long for this world. I mean, you could consider a Crackling Bolt, perhaps a Boomsmith, a Bombsmith, but Reese is likely going to be pitched into the crypt.
I mean, Reese itself, a very great card. Again, you know, if he's allowed to keep in his hand, Nemelex will be able to tunnel that next turn and try to gain some momentum with it. But I mean, you're right. I mean, Reese is probably the biggest threat here, and Nemelex will probably lose it. And he's going to have to hopefully draw some other answers from his deck.
Yeah. The thing that I worry the most about as far as Nemelex's hand, Crackling Bolt gives him middle game. It lets him get rid of the Vampire Princess, and it'll force Motivation to draw into multiple shards. We'll see if that happens.
Inquisition does target Reese. It will go to the crypt. Charge Bot is the draw for Nemelex. We'll play out a Shard of Innovation. It is going to be for Ruby Threshold, and the second Charge Bot now on the board for Nemelex will go to attack phase. 1 damage will go in. That'll bring Motivation down to 22. And he'll activate his champion power, create a worker bot, and that will be the end of his turn.
Motivation is in a little bit of a tricky spot. He didn't have diamond.
Diamond draw for Motivation. So now at 3 resources, double blood, single diamond, will play out a Vampire Princess.
What a great top deck. Motivation is just, his dice are smoking.
Yeah, he's definitely getting the draws he needs, getting that resource after drawing Inquisition with only 2 resources in hand. He's got to feel good about this, but definitely will need to draw into some more resources to continue the momentum that he's got.
Yeah, that was the last play that he can use with the resources he currently has. So if he gets a couple draws without any resources attached to them, Nemelex could very well swing right back into this game.
Draw for Nemelex is a Ruby Shard. We'll play a Shard of Innovation. Looks like he selected a Sapphire Threshold, and now Crackling Bolt is going to be played, and that Vampire Princess will go to the crypt.
Vampire Princess is so devastating, I think, in part because, like all the Vampire Suite, it can get a bunch of card advantage if it hits the right things.
2 damage will bring Motivation down to 20. Worker Bot is created with a champion power. Turn swings back over to Motivation. No resource draw, stuck on 3, can't play anything. And he will pass the turn.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Nemelex just has to hope. No shards. Just keep it coming.
Construction plans. Tower Hulk is the draw. We'll play a Ruby resource. And we go to attack. So we're going to see both charge bots probably swinging in here. Motivation taking a look at the Tower Hulk. Attack is initiated, so both charge bots are coming in. This will bring Motivation down to 18 health.
The great thing about Tower Hulk is that it is somewhat immune from extinction. He doesn't need to transform it until the turn right before he wants to attack with that Tower Hulk.
Bombsmith is played, but there is an Angel of Dawn off of the top, and that's got to feel good for Motivation.
This is one thing right after another. Oh, that's one of the best top decks.
Before the end of the Motivation's turn, 3 counters are put on that Construction Plans Tower Hulk. Draw 4 Nemelex is a second Construction Plans Tower Hulk. Will play a Ruby Shard now at 5 resources, and we see the second Construction Plans hit the board.
Once you get 10 counters on one of those Tower Hulks, it does get Skyguard, and that would be an answer to things like the Angel of Dawn or the Vampire King on the Motivation side of the board.
Nemelex will pass. The turn would draw over to Motivation. His card is a Repel, still stuck on 3 resources.
Repel is nice main board. It's not something that you normally see, but it will take care of artifact troops, unlike Kill.
4 damage will bring Nemelex down to 15 health. And we'll start to see if Nemelex has an answer before the end of Motivation's turn. We're seeing more counters, 5 more counters being put onto that Construction Plans Tower Hulk. And now there is an 8/8 Tower Hulk on the board. Draw for Nemelex is a Tectonic Mega Hulk, and that will be tunneled.
Oh, that's got to feel good. The Tectonic Mega Hulk normally has 10 tunneling counters on it, so you need to have 10 turns essentially before it comes up.
The Tower Hulk is coming in, but unfortunately for Nemelex, that Repel, which is main deck, was a great card for the Motivation to have, and we'll put the Tower Hulk into the crypt. As we switch over to Motivation, his draw is a Blood Shard, now at 4 resources, exactly where we wanted to be, and we're going to attack phase. 4 damage. This will bring Nemelex down to 11.
That top deck shard was kind of unfortunate for Nemelex. He is going to play the Extinction. Oh.
Yes, an Extinction being played by the Motivation, and an activation of the Construction Plans Tower Hulk will put some counters on it. But unfortunately, he lost his troops, so he will transform that into a Tower Hulk. So a 5/5 Tower Hulk with Crush, and his draw for Nemelex is his 3rd Construction Plans Tower Hulk.
Well, that 5/5 is nothing to sneeze at. You can't start swinging in, and with enough turns of that staying on the board, he might be able to catch up.
5 damage will bring the Motivation over to 13. We swing over to him. His draw is a Shard of Retribution. We'll be able to choose between Blood and Diamond Threshold. Diamond is selected, has 4 resources, and a Vampire King will join the field for the Motivation.
I think the big thing is this Vampire King is going to slow down Nemelex's race against time. If the Motivation gets to 7 charges, he'll be able to bring back all the troops that he sacrifices and be able to build up a much larger, overwhelming board state. Nemelex needs to put pressure on him before that happens.
So we're going to go over to Nemelex. His draw is a Crackling Bolt. We go to attack phase, 5/5 Tower Hulk inbound to Motivation. That'll bring him down to 8 health.
It's not bad. It's close.
Turn will switch over to Motivation. His draw is a Soul Marble. He's going to swing. So he's going to see the card that's in Nemelex's hand. 3 damage. That'll bring Nemelex down to 8 health. Crackling Bolt is revealed. And a second Vampire King will join the field for the Motivation.
See, now things get sticky. 2 Vampire Kings means 6 health a turn.
Draw for Nemelex is Yurig the Robomancer.
Oh, this is actually a pretty good pickup. Yurig can create board advantage, and that might be enough pressure to force out all that health gain that Motivation has.
5 damage brings Motivation down to 6 health. Yurig the Robomancer will join the field for Nemelex. He'll pass a turn to Motivation. His draw is a Diamond Shard, plays the Shard. Now it's 6 resources. Soul Marble Uranaz and Charge Colossus in hand.
We also have to remember that there is the Tectonic Mega Hulk under the ground that will be popping up. Well, the more dwarves you have, the faster it goes.
Yeah, unfortunately, that extinction took away his momentum to building that Tectonic Mega Hulk. Soul Marble is played. We go into the attack. This is 6 damage. Nemelex is down to 2 health.
Okay, if he's going to win, it needs to be now.
Nemelex draw is a Reese the Crust Crawler. We'll tunnel that. And unfortunately, there is not enough damage on board for Nemelex, and there's no way to stop those vampires.
Yeah, without some way to block flying some kind of sky guard or some kind of direct damage effect that can take care of the Vampire King, Nemelex might just be out of luck.
Nemelex goes into attack phase. There's 5 damage inbound. This will bring the Motivation down to 7 health, but there's no way that Nemelex can stop those vampires.
It's actually a pretty close game, I think.
It is a very close game. At the end of Nemelex's turn, we see Motivation adding 4 counters to his Soul Marble. Draw 4 Motivation as a Shard of Retribution. Will play that. Looks like he's going to go for a Blood Threshold. Still has 6 resources. It has his Champion in Power available. Looks like he's going to put 6 resources into the Soul Marble and activate Soul Armaments. So this is going to give his troops +2/+2. And Spell Shield and Steadfast, and we see 2/5/5 Vampire Kings inbound to Nemelex, and nothing he can do. And Motivation will take game number 1 in our first matchup tonight in Casting Colosseum. Let's take a look at reserves for the Motivation, playing 3 Vampiric Kiss, 3 Solitary Exile, a single Pride's Fall, single Sorrow, 1 Withering Touch, 2 Cerebral Dominations, a single Soul Marble, 1 Pact of Pain, and 2 Zentos Inquisitor. What are some options for the Motivation for reserves?
I like Solitary Exile just because it can take care of anything. Pride's Fall is actually not a bad idea either. Destroy target troop with 4 defense or more. If you can swing that, it'll kill pretty much most of Nemelex's major threats. They're all very large troops. When you get right down to it, it takes care of a Reese, it takes care of a Tower Hulk, and it takes care of Tectonic Mega Hulk.
And let's take a look at the reserves for Nemelex, playing 3 Volt Cannon, 3 Bomb Right, 2 Tireless Researcher, 3 Reprocessor, and 4 Verdict of the Ancient Kings. What should Nemelex be considering for his reserves?
I like Verdict. One of the major problems in that last game was Extinction, and Nemelex didn't have any way of stopping that. If I were looking at this, and I would consider removing perhaps those Bombsmiths and replacing them with Verdicts, since there's nothing really to target with Bombsmith in the Motivations deck. Most of his troops have just too much defense for that 1 damage to matter.
Yeah, I think you're right. The Bombsmiths, especially against his deck, is not going to be any value versus saving all his troops. He could have gotten that Tectonic Mega Hulk if he would have had those troops down maybe a turn, maybe 2 turns. Could have had that out a lot sooner. So we're getting ready for game number 2 between the Motivation and Nemelex. Nemelex will have the option to go first. We'll take a look at opening hands for both players. Yeah, it was a very close match, that last one. Again, I believe if Nemelex would have had a turn with his troops on board, we could probably seen that Tectonic Mega Hulk into play, and it might have turned the tides a little bit or given him a little bit of breathing room, Dino.
With his board state, it would have come out in 2 turns. And once that Extinction came down, it went from 2 turns to 10, and that's so much more painful.
Opening hand for Nemelex is double Sapphire Shard, Construction Plan Tower Hulk, Reese the Crust Crawler, a Boomsmith, Ingenious Engineer, and Bombsmith. Will play a Sapphire Shard. Will pass over to Motivation. His opening hand is a Diamond Shard, Triple Blood Shard, Vampiric Kiss, Repel, and Vampire Princess. His draw is a Blood Shard. Will play a Diamond and pass over to Nemelex.
Looks like those Bombsmiths still in there.
Maybe he feels like they're a good way to power up his His construction plans will drop a Sapphire Shard at 2 resources and a turn 2 Tunnel Reese for Nemelex.
But also pretty critical, he does have the Verdict of the Ancient Kings. That's a big one.
Draw for the Motivation is a Blood Shard. We'll play it now at 2 resources, single diamond and single blood, and we'll shift back over to Nemelex.
Nemelex does have a couple of nice things going. An early Tunneled Reese can toss down a Construction Plans Tower Hulk as well. This will be, I think, a pretty strong start.
A Shard of Innovation is the draw for Nemelex. He'll be able to choose between a Ruby and Sapphire Threshold. Decided to go with the Ruby. Is at 2 resources and looks like he's going to play the Construction Plans Tower Hulk. Activation of his champion ability will give him a Worker Bot. And we'll pass ourselves over to the Motivation for his draw, and it's a Fentail the Brood Priest, plays a Blood Shard, and it looks like there might be a turn 2 Fentail or Vampire Princess.
Fentail is so incredibly hard to remove once it gets down on the board for these shards in particular. Nemelex is going to need to use multiple direct damage sources.
Fentail the Brood Priest was selected. Looks like Motivation had a hard time trying to decide, but ultimately Fentail the Brood Priest is online for the Motivation. Nemelex at the end of Motivation's turn will put a charge counter or a counter on that Construction Plan Tower Hulk. Sapphire is played for Nemelex now at 4 resources, and an Ingenious Engineer is played.
Remember, Nemelex's overall strategy relies on having a very large board that can be used to basically crank up his other threats, Tower Hulk or his Mega Hulk.
We go over to Motivation. Draw for him is a Shard of Retribution. He will play that, have an option between Diamond and Blood Threshold. We'll choose Diamond at 3 resources and a Vampire Princess next to Fentail for the Motivation.
Yeah, that's really, really rough.
Activation of Fentail the Brood Priest will put some Tarantula Eggs into Nemelex's deck. He's going to go ahead and activate and put some more counters on that Construction Plans Tower Hulk. Back over to Nemelex. His draw is a Shard of Innovation. We'll play that. We'll see what threshold he decides to go with. Looks like it's Ruby. So at 4 resources, double Ruby, triple Sapphire. He can play the Boomsmith. He can play the Bombsmith. And I'm sure he probably wants to think about leaving some resources open for that Verdant the Ancient Kings. What do you think, Dino?
If he plays both, he can get rid of the Vampire Princess. Every troop he plays means that the Verdict is one step closer to being taken by the Vampire Princess. Remember, if she hits an action, it's down.
Yep. So he's going to go ahead and play out the Bombsmith. He was going to activate that charge counter on the Construction Plan Tower Hulk is now at 8. We shift over to Motivation. His draw is a Vampire King. Will play a Blood resource now at 5. Activation of Fentail will put some Tarantula Eggs into Nemelex's deck.
Those Tarantula Eggs, remember, they cannot be hit by a Verdict of the Ancient King. So if they pop out, they will have the pick of destroying any troop on Nemelex's side of the board.
So we're going to attack with the Vampire Princess. 50% chance to hit that Verdict of the Ancient Kings. 2 damage on Nemelex will bring him down to 17 health and reveals the Boomsmith. He is saved.
He dodged it.
At least for this round, or this, he is saved from losing the Verdict of the Ancient Kings.
This is big. This is huge.
Motivation playing a Vampire King on the board. So sitting with a Fentail, Vampire Princess, and Vampire King. Activation at the end of Motivation's turn will put 11 counters on that Construction Plans Tower Hulk.
We'll see if he decides to activate it. There's a strong argument for doing so. It'll allow him to be putting a lot of pressure onto Motivation.
And he does. So the 11-11 Construction Plans Tower Hulk. Draw for Nemelex is a burn. Will play the Boomsmith. And we'll see what he's going to target. The Vampire King. So he has enough resources. Will cast burn onto the Vampire King. And the Vampire King, not even making it at 1 round, will go to the crypt for the Motivation. And we go to attack phase for Nemelex. And here it comes. 11-11 Tower Hulk, Reese the Crust Crawler, Bombsmith, and Genius Engineer. That is going to bring the Motivation all the way down to 7 health.
Whoa. He needs to top deck an Extinction or something soon.
Mechanized Demolisher is created. Fentail on the motivation side will activate and put 3 more Tarantula eggs into Nemelex's deck. Soul Marble is played for motivation. Still at 4 resources, has a repel in hand, and Vampire Kiss decides not to attack, and we'll shift our focus over to Nemelex.
Repel is great for the motivation. He can stop the Tower Hulk or potentially the Reese. He's likely going to try and get both. Not attacking with the Vampiric Princess means he's probably going to block and use a Vampiric Kiss to take out the Reese.
Draw for Nemelex is a burn. And let's see how attack goes. So we see the Mechanized Demolisher, the Tower Hulk, and the Reese all inbound. Block on the Mechanized Demolisher with the Vampire Princess. Gonna use the ability to make the Vampiric Kiss cost nothing. Let's see what he targets. And here is where Verdict of the Ancient Kings is going to be used by Nemelex to counter that Vampiric Kiss and repel immediately in response onto the Tower Hulk.
That was such skillful play on the motivation's part, baiting out a possible counter by going after the lower troop.
Motivation is going to go down to 5 health. Vampire Princess will go into the crypt.
And there's going to be one more chance to draw that extinction.
Needs to find an answer. Going to activate at the end of Nemelex's turn for 2 charge counters. Does Motivation find what he needs? And it is a Diamond Shard. It is not what the Motivation was looking for. Will play a Blood Shard. Activate his champion ability after the activation of Fento. Puts more Tarantula eggs into the deck. And he's trying to decide what he's going to bring back. It looks like it's going to be the Vampire King. But things don't look good for the Motivation right now.
Well, remember, Nemelex could draw the Tarantulas. There are a lot of them in his deck.
So we'll see if the Motivation has Kismet on his side. As we switch over to Nemelex, his draw is a Fissure Smith.
Oh, wow.
And we go directly into attack phase, and Nemelex swinging with everything he can. Everything but that Worker Bot inbound to the Motivation.
This is the moment of truth. I don't think there's any block here that allows Motivation to survive. 5 + 3 is 8. He has 8 health that he can allocate.
Yeah, there's nothing that the Motivation can do. He's going to take some damage. He's going to gain some life from the Vampire King. And ultimately, he is going to go down. So Nemelex will tie this matchup 1-1 against the Motivation. And again, let's take a look at reserves for both players as we go back to Motivation. We talked about some of the cards, and he brought some in. What do you think about using Sorrow as well?
Sorrow's not bad if you're really hating on those 1 defense robots and or dwarves. The fact of the matter is there aren't that many of them, though. I guess it really depends. What are you more afraid of, the Worker Bot or the Tower Hulk that's being built up? There's an argument for putting it in there, but if I had my druthers, I'd probably just have Pridefall plus maybe some of those Solitary Exiles instead of kills.
Yeah, I think Solitary Exile definitely a great pick for Motivation if he wants to put those into his main board. Let's take a look over back on Nemelex. He did side in or reserve in those Verdict of the Ancient Kings. Is there anything else he should look at?
I think those are probably it. Many of the other options out there, maybe a Volcannon that might provide just a little bit of indirect damage. You don't need to force it through past a Vampire.
All right, so we're going to game number 3. This game will decide it. Who will win? Who will walk away with the spoils of victory? Opening hand for the Motivation is double Blood Shard, double Diamond, a Fentail the Brood Priest, and double Extinction. Will play a Blood Shard. Over on Nemelex's side, he did mulligan to 6. Looks like he had a Crackling Vortex, Ruby Shard, Sapphire Shard, Construction Plans, Tower Hulk, Reese the Crushcaller, and a Bombsmith.
Another early Reese. We saw how effective that was last game.
So Nemelex's draw will draw a Ruby Shard, plays a Sapphire, and we'll shift over to Motivation.
Motivation, on the flip side, has 2 extinctions in hand. So we did see Extinction crush Nemelex in the first game. He's got to find some way to dodge those.
Vampire Princess is the draw for Motivation. We'll play a Blood Shard. Looks like he'll pass the turn, 2 resources, double blood threshold. Over to Nemelex, we'll play a Ruby Shard now at 2. We could see an early construction plans Tower Hulk, or of course the Reese, which it is the Reese. It will go and be tunneled, and we'll pass the turn over to Motivation.
Likely see a Fenteo, as that has the greatest impact over time. But Vampire Princess is another good option. Can get a health reserve.
Blood Shard is the draw. Will play out a shard at 3 resources. Fenteo is indeed played, and he will pass. As we take a look at Nemelex, his draw is a Tectonic Mega Hulk. Will play Crackling Vortex. Activate that champion ability to put out a Worker Bot.
I really like the Tectonic Mega Hulk. Getting that out early is very powerful. We've seen Repel take down a lot of Nemelex's threats, but Tectonic Mega Hulk dodges Extinction, which currently is the only removal that Motivation has in his hand.
Decides to play the construction plan Tower Hulk, and that will end his turn. We'll go over to Motivation, who draws an Inquisition, plays out a Diamond Shard now at 4 resources, so has a lot of options available. Activation of Fenteo the Brood Priest will put those Tarantula eggs into Nemelex's deck, and we could see an Inquisition from the Motivation.
And he's thinking about either the Princess or the Inquisition. Princess is a bit more of an aggressive play. Inquisition is a defensive play.
What would you go with here in this situation, Dino?
I think information is one of the most powerful things you can do. But it ultimately comes down to how comfortable Motivation feels.
Inquisition is indeed, he wants to get a little more knowledge, finds that Tectonic Mega Hulk in Nemelex's hand, and it will go to the crypt immediately. Didn't even take him a second to pick that and send it on its way. So that will be the end of Motivation's turn, but I'm sure we're going to have some activation and counters put onto this construction plans.
Yeah, you got to crank that up. It's the only other threat outside of Reese the Crustcrawler that Nemelex has at the moment. Bombsmith is a little bit small for taking out spiders.
Draw for Nemelex is a Yurig the Robomancer. We'll play a Ruby Shard now at 4 resources, and a Bombsmith is played for Nemelex.
Got to get some workers down.
You got to get those ways to keep powering up your construction plans, Tower Hulk, and your defense. So we'll play out a resource for the Motivation now at 5. Activation of Fenteo the Brood Priest will put more Tarantula eggs into Nemelex's deck, and a Vampire Princess is the play for Motivation.
All right, aggro on Motivation side. Nemelex needs a Sapphire. He's got to draw that, drop the Yurig, and really start cranking up that tower so he can either block the flyers or smack Motivation in the face.
2 more counters are put onto the construction plans Tower Hulk at the start of Nemelex's turn. When he draws, unfortunately, one of those Tarantulas.
It's almost timely, though, if you think about it, because if it's killing something, at least it's only killing a 1/1. It's not killing Yurig.
That is a good point. Shard of Innovation is played for Nemelex. We'll be able to choose between a Ruby and a Sapphire threshold.
Got to feel like there's some bullets dodged there.
Yeah, but also, even though it takes out a 1/1 Dino, there's still a 5/5 Tarantula on the other side of the board that you're staring at.
Silver linings, right?
Will activate champion power, put out a construction or a worker bot. Yurik the Robomancer is played. That will end the turn for Nemelex as we go over to Motivation. His draw is a Blood Shard, plays the Blood Shard, is at 6 resources. Activation of Fenteo will put 3 more Tarantula eggs into Nemelex's deck. And we're going to attack phase. We see the Vampire Princess and Tarantula inbound.
There's another sort of side benefit to getting an early Tarantula that's not hitting anything super important for Nemelex, and that is that the bigger Motivation's board is, the less likely he's going to want to toss down that Extinction.
3 more counters are put onto the construction plans Tower Hulk. Nemelex down to 17 health after that attack. And with 6 open resources, Vampire Kiss and Double Extinction in hand, It looks like Motivation is going to try to slow down those counters on that Construction Plans Tower Hulk by targeting the worker bot.
Yeah, he's thinking about it. It's not a bad play at all. I like that line. The Tower Hulk is only as scary as the number of counters you put on it.
So he indeed targets the worker bot with Vampiric Kiss. He will gain some health or gain some life, and the worker bot will go to the crypt. We'll shift over to Nemelex, resurfaces after being tunneled from turn number 2. And that's going to be pretty positive for Nemelex. Draw is a Fissure Smith. We'll play a Ruby Shard. Looks like he's going to tunnel this Fissure Smith. Possibly. Yurig creates a worker bot.
So this is an interesting interaction. Reese the Crustcrawler, whenever you create a worker bot, it becomes a random robot, and it does not matter what is creating that worker bot. It can be Yurig, it can be your champion power from Bertram Craghaven, it can be anything.
Worker bot turns into a charge bot and tunnels the Fissure Smith, so there's going to be a surprise for that Tarantula if it swings in next turn.
Yeah, no, this is pretty good.
An overtime bot is created thanks to Reese, but on the turn for Motivation, an Angel of Dawn on the top deck. So a free Angel of Dawn will activate Fentail the Brood Priest, put 3 more Tarantula eggs into Nemelex's deck.
So Fissure Smith will destroy a random attacking troop that does not have flying. So if the Motivation swings in with his Tarantula, he will lose it.
Looks like he's playing it cautious, just swinging in with the Vampire Princess. Tarantula's just hanging back. 2 damage being dealt to Nemelex. And it looks like that is going to be the end of Motivation. The Motivation's turn. Activation of some counters on the Construction Plan Tower Hulk. Now it's at 10. We'll use a resource to activate the overtime secondary ability. Puts another counter on Construction Plan Tower Hulk. It is now at 11. And now we see an 11-11 Tower Hulk on the board for Nemelex.
It's a good time to be putting on some pressure. You've got a pretty big board. I wouldn't be surprised if Extinction doesn't happen soon.
Fissure Smith surfaces as the draw for Nemelex is an ingenious engineer. So, the Motivation has to be pretty happy that he didn't swing in with that Tarantula and lose it. Yurig is going to create oh my gosh, he created a worker bot, which turned into a charge Colossus.
This is ridiculous.
Great pickup for Nemelex. The other 2 artifact troops I cannot see, but we go to attack phase. Tower Hulk coming in 11-11, and it looks like we're going to see a double block from Tarantula and Angel of Dawn.
It's a pretty clear signal that Extinction is coming down. You want to soak up as much damage as possible, just mitigate that disadvantage, and then remove everything on Nemelex's side.
Draw for the Motivation is a kill. We'll activate Fentail the Brood Priest to put 3 more Tarantula eggs into his opponent's deck. We're swinging in with the Vampire Princess. Now the Tower Hulk does have Skyguard.
Oh, great catch. Yes, it does have Skyguard. Looks like Motivation missed that as well.
So Tower Hulk is going to be able to step in front of the Vampire Princess. Motivation is going to gain some health with the Vampire Princess.
And ultimately, that's all that really matters. Extinction is likely going to be the next line, and so everything's going to disappear anyway. You might as well get some benefit out of that Vampire Princess.
Damage is dealt. The Motivation is now at 29 health, and we see an Extinction. This has got to be a sad feeling for Nemelex to see his hard work, that Reese the Crustcrawler and Yurig combo, but he does get a Scrapyard Dynamo out of it.
Go, little 1/1.
Draw for Nemelex is a charge bot. Now remember, he did have a charge Colossus, so that gave him 8 charges. So he's at 8 charges right now.
That's true, and he could use those if he wants to build up a board and start creating a bunch of robots again. Without a plan or without a Mega Hulk to really capitalize on those workers, you'd almost rather save it for a Reese.
So we go in. Damage is going to be dealt. One single point of damage to the motivation goes to 28 health, and activation of Nemelex's champion ability will put a worker bot in play. We shift over to motivation. His draw is a shard of retribution. Going for that diamond threshold is now at 6 resources, kill and extinction in hand, and he has the ability to use Rutherford Banks' champion ability to bring back a troop. Many options here for him, Dino. What do you think he should go with?
I think something with flying, something with evasion is not bad at all. Could capitalize more with the Fenteo, but I like flying.
Angel of Dawn is selected thanks to his champion ability. We'll go back onto the field for free. As we go back over to Nemelex, his draw is a Sapphire Shard. Activation of his champion ability will put another worker bot into play. We'll play that resource instead of holding on to it and pass the turn.
And there are almost 15 spider eggs already in Nemelex's deck.
What's better than one Angel of Dawn? How about a top deck Angel of Dawn? So 2 angels for the motivation. He's going to be swinging in with attack of 4 damage. This will bring Nemelex down to 11 health. And with 2 angels in the air, Nemelex has to find an answer.
Yeah, that was a critical top deck snake. If Nemelex doesn't find something, this is going to be a very short couple of turns.
So we're going to go over to Nemelex. We'll see if he finds an answer with this draw. It is a Boomsmith. We'll activate his champion ability, a 3rd worker bot now on the board. Boomsmith comes into play. Looks like he's going to target one of the angels because he can. And we go to attack, and that will be the end of the turn for Nemelex. Draw 4, the motivation is a diamond shard. We go directly into attack. 2 angels inbound, 8 damage that Nemelex cannot respond to, and Nemelex is now down to 3 health. Diamond shard is played, and Nemelex needs an answer now.
What makes these angels so terrifying is not only do they have evasion, not only are they a 4/4, but they also have steadfast. They can be offensive and provide a wall of defense that Nemelex can't break through.
Unfortunately for Nemelex, his draw is a Sapphire Shard, not able to help. Motivation's draw on his turn is a Repel. We're going to attack, and unfortunately, Nemelex will not be able to withstand these 2 angels coming at him during attack.
It was well played, though. I think that 3rd game was pretty spectacular. And there was a moment on Nemelex's side with that huge board. It's very impressive.
Yeah, I bet he would have probably hoped he had a verdict of the Ancient Kings in hand. Unfortunately, wasn't able to stop the extinction. And motivation coming in with 8 damage. That'll be enough to take Nemelex out. And motivation after this will go up 2-1 in this great matchup between him and Nemelex. Really great battle, though, between these 2 players.
It just highlights the importance of having anti-flying. I think looking at this meta, particularly in the Blood Diamond matchup, you need something that can take care of flyers. Without that, you're at the mercy of Vampire Kings and those angels.
So the motivation continues his dominance in the casting Colosseum, taking down Nemelex 2-1 in a very exciting matchup. What was your favorite part of this match, Dino?
I have to say, seeing a Tower Hulk get built all the way up to the point where it can actually block flying troops is pretty breathtaking. It doesn't happen very often. Tower Hulk is a card that is a little less used, but it has such a fun interaction. Being able to swing through with this 11/11 behemoth is a really rewarding feeling.
And I really like the fact, the randomness of Reese the Crustcrawler and having Yurig the Robomancer on board at the same time. Definitely fun to see the different kinds of combinations. And really, that could have turned the tide of the match as well. Don't you think, Dino?
Oh, sure. The interactions in Nemelex's deck are well thought out and very clever. Unfortunately, Extinction is still a good card. There's a reason why it sells for around 900 platinum on the auction house. Both times, both game 1 and game 3, we saw Extinction come to the motivation's rescue. You've got to stop it, or you will suffer the consequences.
So great matchup between these 2 players, the motivation, our Gladiator, and Nemelex. Great matchup. We're going to go down onto the tournament floor where we have your Hex reporter, our fellow Clampion, Alucard, who's with our Gladiator, the motivation. Let's head on down and listen to that interview.
All right, I'm here now with the motivation. Congratulations on that excellent victory. It was a hard-fought battle, but you actually made it out of there alive. Well done, sir.
Thank you, thank you. That was a fun one. The dwarf decks, especially one that's a little different than the one I'm used to seeing in tournaments. It was fun to play against. There were some really close games, and you definitely had me sweating a few times there.
Yeah, for sure. He was definitely putting on a lot of pressure in that final game there, and you managed to keep cool under that kind of pressure. What do you think really helped you do that?
I mean, sitting on two extinctions against a deck that relies on needing a lot of troops on the board was super reassuring sitting there in my hand. And then obviously the Fentio right from the start was pretty good. I was hitting myself a little bit because I didn't drop my diamond shard on the first turn, so I was praying for no angels. But then the angels showed up eventually, and it all went well.
Yeah, it seems like angels have been your savior in a lot of these casting Colosseums. Um, how you like an angel in these kind of decks? I mean, you brought together a brew of a blood diamond deck that has incorporated some of the wild diamond synergy that Satalution brought to IQ number 12. What kind of brought you to this deck, and why do you keep bringing angels again and again into these decks?
I mean, a lot of people say they're overpowered, and they can be. Those like turn two free angels, always nice, but they're very hit or miss. If you don't have that diamond when they come into your hand, that's rough. They can get rippled back into your hand. Um, there's lots of things that make them. I think it balances out, but they are very strong when you get them when you need them. You have to have that RNG luck though, but. Sometimes I just try and I just try and hope for the best, and the angels guide me, so to speak.
Well, they certainly guided you in this match for sure. They definitely came to your rescue at the end there. So, how are you feeling about this Extravaganza tournament that's coming up this weekend? We've got a bunch of competitors in here. We know Nemelex is going to be duking it out again. Are you ready to face him again? How are you
I
feeling about
mean,
it?
yeah, he gave me a run for his money. He said he was happy he got to show off the Tower Hulks finally. But no, he was great to talk to, great to chat with. Fun guy. He was all about having fun. And there's some other competitors on there though, not as scary like JJ, Satalution. I'm not too worried about those guys or anything. Um, but yeah, no, there's some great players on that list. I'm definitely looking forward to it. Should be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me here, Motivation. We're going to send it back up to Snake and Dinotropia.
Thanks, Alucard. Great interview. And motivation again, continuing with his top deck dreams of angels. If we remember, he had 3 angels in one of his previous matches, back to back to back. So if there's anyone who will play angels with style, it's definitely the motivation.
How does that even happen? That's just nonsense. The man's a wizard.